a strong word.
But we're just using it for the purposes of the device.
Yep.
We're going to break down Shedeur Sanders. And so what's something you like, what's something you love, what's something that you're concerned about? Let's start with like. What do you like about Shedeur?
Yeah, the big like is his swagger and his confidence. And I understand people may be put off by some of this, the backwards hat, the glasses, the flashing the watch, but that's the leadership kind of stuff that teammates love from their quarterback. They love the mocks. You got to have that in the NFL. When you go to a new city, there's going to be a lot of doubters. A lot of people saying, hey, you shouldn't have been picked here. You shouldn't have been picked there. You got to have that self-belief in order to be an effective quarterback in the NFL. So I like that a lot about Shedeur Sanders.
What do you love about it?
I actually love the ability to make plays. I think that's the big thing with him. The ability to look down the field, the accuracy, and some of the pinpoint placements of these footballs. I did the tape yesterday where you saw the touchdowns, and it led from his ability to put it on the back shoulder of Travis Hunter 2 times.
Yeah.
Stopped him in his tracks. He went the other way. So the ability to push the ball down the field, his vision, and the fact that, again, he's been around the game the entire time. And I still believe the fact that he came from Jackson State and went to Colorado and turned around that program immensely in 2 years.
And then we'll say, what is it you loathe? Understanding we don't mean it literally. It just starts with the letter L, and we like that. What's the concern about him?
Yeah, at times he will hold on to the football too much. And, again, that goes with the confidence. So you can't make these types of plays in the pros. A lot of times offensive coordinators will go into the mic and say, hey, man, I'm going to give you a shot here, but just take care of me on the throw. Now, if the play's not there, you hit your check down or you just take off and run. A few times when I watched Shedeur's tape, he's trying to make too much happen. That's the confidence, but in the league, you cannot do that because those end up being sack fumbles. Other teams get touchdowns and they get extra possessions.
Okay, so there's so much there. Look, the entire draft, I know that we've talked a lot about him, but the reality is so much of what is about to happen next Thursday and I guess into Friday will hinge on what winds up happening with Shedeur Sanders. Let me dive ahead to something I had promised, because the Pittsburgh Steelers are a team that is between a rock and a hard place, and the rock is Aaron Rodgers, right? I mean, at some point, we're now a week away from the draft. We keep thinking, well, he's got to make a decision. He's got to make a decision. He hasn't yet, and he's him. So he doesn't have to do anything. What are the Steelers thinking with regards to that, and how does it impact what happens next week?
Well, you say the draft is next week, and I would say before the draft even begins, the Steelers start their offseason workout program next week, in the early part of the week. And so if Aaron Rodgers is going to play in Pittsburgh with new teammates, new coaches, new playbook, new city, wouldn't you think that you would want to be there for the start of the off-season program? I always felt like with the off-season program starting next week, with the draft on Thursday night, that would be a very natural time for the quarterback to ultimately make a decision. But here we are, Thursday morning, 9:51 a.m. Eastern time, and he still has not given them an answer as to what he's going to do, which tells you, look, we can't speak for Aaron Rodgers, but clearly there's some reservation he has about signing with the Steelers. Otherwise, he would have done it by now.
And the ironic part, Green, about what Adam's saying is, what do we hear Mike Tomlin always say? We want volunteers, not hostages, right? Like, we want people that want to be Pittsburgh Steelers. And if I'm Aaron Rodgers and I want one more chance, like, you have a Hall of Fame coach, they just got DK Metcalf, like, what are you waiting for? To me, it must be Minnesota. Does he think in the back of his mind, do I maybe have a chance to go there? But if I'm Mike Tomlin at some point, I hate using deadlines, but I think this is a situation like you're either with us or we're moving on.
And I get that, but I also think it's smart by the Steelers to be patient. Look, this guy's a first ballot Hall of Famer, so are you going to really rush him now? I said that a month ago, and I felt a little bit more comfortable with it. The draft's next week, so we kind of need to know, but I would not be shocked in the next 72 hours if Aaron Rodgers started to come out and say potentially he's a Pittsburgh Steeler.
Okay, you said moving on. What are they moving on to? That's the issue. There's nothing to move on to. So you can kind of sit back and wait. But I would say to you as a quarterback, does it matter to be there for the start of the offseason program?
It does matter. But again, Aaron Rodgers is a Hall of Famer, so maybe it won't as much. And again, you have a roster where there's a lot of veteran players. So sometimes we have young guys, you want the quarterback to get there, get intertwined, get meshed, and build those relationships. But if I'm the Pittsburgh Steelers, if I'm Mike Tomlin, I'm securing my job. I don't mind waiting for Aaron Rodgers until the ninth hour.
Yeah, Adam, let me push back on what you said. Let me take you back to 2009. We hire Rex Ryan, Brett Favre moves on, and we have Kellen Clemens. And I know we are not going to sit there, at 17 to draft a quarterback. We are going to go up and get him. And I got to think the Steelers have a similar mindset. We are not going to, on opening day with Mason Rudolph, we are going up for fill in the blank. I know you're shaking your head, but I'm just telling you, I've been there, and it's inconceivable to me to think that they're going to go into the season with Mason Rudolph as their quarterback.
I'm not telling you that that's the plan, but I'm telling you that I believe they are prepared to go into the season with Mason Rudolph as their quarterback. And the fact that Aaron Rodgers hasn't committed and may not commit by the time the draft occurs is not going to make them more aggressive in terms of trading up in the first round. I think they're going to stay right where they are. If anything, the Steelers are more inclined to move back off 21 to pick up the extra picks that they lost in trading for DK Metcalf. So what worked for you in 2017 doesn't necessarily apply to them in 2025.
Here's the thing I'll say about Rodgers. If I'm the Steelers, and look, Aaron is obviously an offbeat person, so it's very difficult to predict or to assume you know why he's doing anything. But there are only two obvious reasons why he hasn't come in yet that I can think of, and they're both bad. One of them is he's seriously considering retiring, like he's really weighing whether he wants to do this again. That's bad. I don't think you want a guy who's that close to retiring.
The sense is he's wanted to play, so I don't
I agree with that, but I mean, what are we doing here? So then the other reason is there's someplace else he'd rather be, and if he's waiting to see if that comes through, well that's even worse.
And that's when New Orleans comes into the conversation. It's indoors. You have not as playoff ready as the Steelers, and I know you're shaking your head, Schefter, but I mean, that could also be a suitor as well. At the last minute.
I find that tough to picture. Okay. I find it very tough to picture Aaron going to New Orleans. The other place we would think is Minnesota, right?
Agree.
It's the logical
That's been the one that's appealed to him. That's been the one that I think if he had his choice, he'd like to go to. That's the one that would put him on the same exact trajectory that Brett Favre followed, going from Green Bay to the Jets to the Vikings.
Right. And so if you're the Steelers, you just sort of put this into a human equation. If you ask a woman to marry you and she says, let me hear first from Herbie. Like, let me just, Herbie. I'm holding out. I don't know where I came up with Herbie.
No, I like that. That's good.
Just looking at you made me think.
Herbie's high school classmate or something.
Let me hear from Phil. If Phil wants to marry me, I'll marry him. If not, I'll let you know next week whether or not I'll marry. We're back on Get Up once again. We are 7 days till the draft. So let's take a look at some notable 7th overall picks in recent years. J.C. Latham was 7th last year. Penei Sewell, obviously one of the great players in the NFL, went 7. How about Josh Allen was the 7th overall pick in Buffalo in 2018. And so teams are dreaming of getting players like those at number 7. Let's do some draft day dreams with Mike Tannenbaum, our general manager. 7 days away, let's do the 7th pick, which is the New York Jets. Mike T, what is their dream pick at number 7?
Armand Membu, offensive tackle, Missouri. As you can see here, Greedy, he plays on the right side. They got a great left tackle last year in Olu Fashanu. Aaron Glenn, Darren Muji, they've added tough, smart players so far. He fits in perfectly. And boy, would it be great, Greeny, as a Jet fan, to know that you have bookend tackles for the next decade?
He had an enormous performance at the Combine that I think really boosted his stock substantially. So that's their dream at number 7. How about the Chicago Bears? What would be their dream pick?